Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Julie Hedrick, the APFA National President. And before we get started with anything today, we're going to go around the room and let everyone introduce themselves who will be answering the questions today and let you know what they do here at APFA. David, would you like to get started?
Sure. My name is David Arnett, and I am a current contract and scheduling representative. I'm also an unemployment specialist here at APFA, and I've been doing APFA work since about 2016.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Brian. I'm the APFA National Contract Chair, and I'm a DCA-based flight attendant.
Hello, I'm Eric Harris. I am APFA's treasurer. Welcome and thank you.
Hi, I'm Kelly Hagan. I am a contract scheduling rep, one of your elected negotiators, and I am also an unemployment specialist based in Chicago. Thanks for coming today.
Hello, my name is Ankit Patel, and I am assistant to the National Treasurer, Eric Harris, and assisting with this town hall.
Hi everyone, I'm Josh Black, APFA National Secretary. Glad to have you.
Okay, first off, we want to thank you for joining us today. We have two experts here with us today who have been working with our flight attendants for the past 6 months to help them make sure that they get all of the money that they should be getting from the unemployment services. They have helped to recover $1.8 million for flight attendants since they started their work. I can't tell you how proud we are of them here at APFA, and we are so thankful that they've been able to help so many flight attendants to get the money they deserve. There are a couple of things we want to remind all of you, especially our furloughed flight attendants. We need to make sure that you have an updated email address and a physical resident address with the company. The company will be emailing you on Monday, October 19th, what your furlough pay will be for your furlough pay period. So we're going to show on the screen exactly where you have to go on JetNet to update that information.
Give me 1 second, guys. I'm getting that up and running.
Also, let's make sure while you're updating your company email address that you also email with the union, the APFA. We want to make sure we have your current email address also. We'll be putting out a lot of really good information during the next couple of years while you're either out on leave or if you've taken the VOP, or also if you're on furlough. While you're out on furlough, we want to make sure that you have all the updated information. So this is exactly where you need to go on JetNet. Josh, can you walk them through exactly where this is at?
Actually, Kelly, do you mind walking through how to get to this page?
Yep.
Or Brian?
Yep. So what you can do is if you're looking for the information that's put out by the company, if you have been furloughed, you go log on to JetNet. And once you're into JetNet, you'll see should be on the right-hand side where it says resources for furloughed team members. What you'll do is you'll click on the View More section, and once you click that, it will take you to the page that's set up specifically for furloughed flight attendants. And then on the left-hand side, you'll select where it says APFA represented flight service team members, and then below that there'll be a bunch of links that are extremely important for information. So it has the furlough guide put out by the company, frequently asked questions, benefits while on furlough, returning company property, and then what Julie was just highlighting where it says provide your personal email address. This is incredibly important for you to update with the company as they'll be communicating over the next few months updates for you. And since we no longer have access to company email, this will be the hub for you to get the information about any developments while we're out on furlough.
As well as the APFA hotline.
As well as the
right?
APFA hotline, yeah. Okay,
great. Thank you, Brian. Okay, so next I think what we'd like to do is walk you through the APFA website. We have a lot of really useful information on our website about unemployment, and we're going to walk you through how to get to that information and what you can find on our website. So Kelly, do you want to help us with that?
Yes, ma'am. So if you go to apfa.org, that will take you to the homepage, and you'll just need to log in. If you have any issues with that, you can reach out to the membership department, which is on the very bottom of that homepage. You can click on the link for that. Couple different ways you can get to it. You can go to the banner that you see on the screen now that says the Virtual Unemployment Town Hall, view the schedule. If you click that button, that will have the information of the town halls, but it also has how to join the town hall event link. You can click that. There's our video. We hope that you had the opportunity to watch that before attending today, but if not, there it is. It had some very good information, just some basic overview of it, of how unemployment works. You can also, if you don't mind, Josh, I kind of got off a little bit. If you go up to the very top, you'll see member resources on the far right-hand side. If you click that link, it will bring you up to the general resources. You'll go down to helpful links and unemployment resources. We're the very first link on that. So this is our web page. We've got the information of how to reach us at the top. We also have general unemployment information. This is a deeper dive than the slide presentation that we provided for you that explains a lot of different aspects to unemployment. One that is very important is if you click on the blue resource tab, which is the last one of that lineup. This is going to have a lot of information that you're going to need when you file your initial claim. It's going to have the AA's address. It's also going to have their federal ID number. And then for our New York guys on the line, we've got a special ID number that's specific to New York State. And then it also has the packets as well. Brian had mentioned that they are on JetNet. We have also added them on here to try to keep all the information in one area for you. So if we go back to the main part, if you don't mind, Josh.
Back up.
Yep. And can we make that a little bit smaller? Okay, so we're going to scroll down just a bit. Once you get through this information, you're going to see a new set of tabs, and that is going to be for the claim states. We have them listed as base just for ease of use. So if we go to LaGuardia, that is going to be all of the New York items that you need. The very first link that we have provided is the hyperlink that actually takes you to New York State's unemployment where you would file your initial claim. That is also the same link that you're going to be using once you have submitted your claim for you to certify, and you'll be doing that every week in New York. We also have some additional information for you. We have some links. We've got some downloadable booklets like your claimant handbook, some frequently asked questions, all kinds of stuff on there. We also have the government advocates. We have had, not a lot, but we have had some issues with stalled claims, and we wanted to have that information available in the event that you wanted to reach out to the local government representatives to have them help advocate. Josh, do you mind if we sneak back up and go to Miami? And for our Florida folks on the phone, it's set up the exact same way. So that is exactly where you would go to file your initial claim, as well as to do your certifications. And that is all I have on that.
Okay, great. There's a lot of really good information on the website. Almost, I think, everything you need to know about unemployment, especially in your state also. So if you haven't checked that out yet, or maybe after the call, you can, if you don't get all of your question answered, or if you need some refresher of some other information, make sure you check out that website, that information on our website. Okay, we'll get started with our questions that we have coming in today. And it looks like Kelly and David, the first question is an unemployment claim question, and it's got 3 questions to it. So I will just ask them one at a time, and if you can just answer each one, and I won't go through all 3, but we'll make sure that all 3 questions get asked. So the very first question is, what is the maximum number of weeks New York State allows for unemployment benefits?
Okay, that's a really good question. So in New York State, they have a 26-week for your initial claim. That's the length that it would last. Under the CARES Act, it does provide for an additional 13 weeks once that 26 weeks has been exhausted. So that brings you up to 39. New York has already committed to, at this point, that they are going to pay 59 weeks of unemployment. So what you're looking at is a 59-week stretch for that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kelly. All right, the next part of this question is, if filing for unemployment while receiving furlough pay, will that have an impact, as in reduce the weekly amount maximum I could possibly be receiving? And will I have to state that I am receiving furlough pay on the application?
Okay, so for that, when you fill out your initial claim, it is going to ask you for some information. Furlough pay is not one of them. When you certify, it will ask you some questions as well, and that is not one of them. The reason being is New York sees furlough pay, severance pay, as being wages earned, and it will measure against your weekly benefit amount, and it goes dollar for dollar. So in New York, the maximum that you can claim weekly is $504. That could differ for each claimant, because when they do the look back to ascertain how much you're going to get for weekly benefit, you may not qualify for the $504, but we're just going to work off of the $504 since that is the max. If you receive, let's say hypothetically, $400 in severance pay, that $400 would come off of dollar for dollar off of the $504.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, the last part of the question is, will the weekly amounts be different while receiving furlough pay and when the furlough pay period ends?
And that is going to, I think, was addressed in the previous answer, but let me just go over that just to make sure that there's no confusion. Your weekly amount that you receive from the state would be different. However, your weekly amount that you're actually getting would not be. It's just you're getting some of it from American and some of it from the state. Once that furlough pay has concluded, you will be getting all of it from the state. And this was not part of the question asked, but I think it may be something that's running through the person who asked the question through their head. If you certify and you raise your hand and say, you know, I need to get paid this week, and then you submit how much money that you're receiving, and it goes dollar for dollar against that, and then you do not receive any benefit from the state, that will not reduce the number of weeks that you can claim. So while, as we mentioned earlier, it's 26 weeks currently for the straight unemployment before the extras kick in, if you did not receive any money on that week, it's not going to reduce those weeks. So by you raising your hand to keep your claim active, it is not going to be harmful or detrimental to you in that way.
That's really good information to have. I'm glad you added that in. Okay, the next question is, I have put 7 to 8 weeks of vouchers in and have received $0. They already acknowledged they received my application. What can I do? And it looks like, David, you're going to help us answer that one.
Absolutely, Julie. So if a claimant, I would be very interested to know where they actually are in the filing process, because if you have not received the initial monetary determination, the one thing that we do advise the claimant to do is continue to certify. And we also need to know how they are certified, because the weekly benefit amount in Florida kind of is a little lower. It's $275. So you're going to have to make sure, if you're on the 38-hour VOP, that there is no roadmap for how those hours need to be claimed. So if you're claiming them and breaking them down into weekly installments, you may actually be pricing yourself out of the unemployment market. So you have to get creative when you are certifying during those weeks, because you have to earn a minimum. I mean, if you're certifying that you're getting 5 hours and you're at the top of the pay scale for that first week, then you're already, maximizing your weekly benefit amount. So you're not going to receive any state benefits. However, if you continue to certify and you don't receive any funds, number one, we'd be interested to know, did you receive a monetary determination and what that monetary determination was? So if you do have those questions, please send us an email at unemployment@apfa.org, or you can complete the contact us form that we just showed you at the opening of this presentation.
Okay, great. Thanks, David. Okay, the next question is from a furloughed flight attendant in New York. Okay, and this is the question. I have been collecting unemployment for 5 months from New York, May through October, while on leave from American. I have now transitioned to furlough status. Is it okay to just stop certifying weekly during my furlough pay period, that's 3 months, in order to not waste weeks of unemployment, then begin certifying after my furlough pay period ends? Or do I have to continue to certify each week using up eligible weeks of unemployment while getting $0 in unemployment because I make more than $504 a week in furlough pay?
Okay, that's a really good question. So when we see folks that are transitioning from either a leave to a furlough or a leave back to work and on another leave, during that time, there will be lapses when you certify, because you would not be certifying because you are back to work, or in your case, you're going to be receiving the furlough pay. We suggest for your specific situation, since you're transitioning to furlough, to keep certifying, because let's just be really honest, New York is really underwater. They're very slow at processing claims. After 3 months, your claim is going to go inactive. And there is a process to reactivate it, but because they're so underwater, that is a very slow process. So we suggest that you go ahead and keep certifying, raising your hand. You will get $0 benefit, but it will keep your claim active. And as we had mentioned earlier, it will not take away from those eligible weeks because you're not getting any money from the state. So they're not going to penalize you and say, oh, for those 3 months, when you receive $0 benefit for those 12 weeks, that's going to take 12 weeks out of how many weeks you can claim. That's not how that's going to work. You're still going to maintain those weeks because you are getting $0 on the certification.
Okay, perfect. Good question. Okay, this next question is from a flight attendant on a leave of absence based in New York. And the question is, how do you apply for unemployment? And David, I think you're going to help us with that.
Sure, Julie, thank you. So this is a question that comes up a lot, and it's just how do I apply for unemployment? We put a lot of great resources on the APFA website and unemployment resources, but the fastest and easiest way to make sure that your claim is captured correctly is that you log on to the New York Department of Labor website, and that is dol.ny.gov. That link is actually listed on the APFA resources unemployment page, but if you're filing in New York, you're also going to need one more piece of information, and we've included, it's called a Record of Employment Form number 1A, and you can find it on the New York Department of Labor website, and we have the link to that on the APFA Unemployment Resources homepage.
Perfect. Great. There's a lot on that on the website under the unemployment page, so please go look at that page. There is a lot there. All right. The next question is another flight attendant who is on a leave of absence, and this flight attendant is based in Miami. And the question is in Florida, are we allowed to claim unemployment while on an EVLOA? And David, I think you're going to answer that one for us.
Yeah, so this again is a case of you are allowed to apply for unemployment. The company will not contest the claim if you're on any PVLOA, EVLOA, STLOA, VOP, or you're involuntarily furloughed. The question comes down to your weekly claim certifications, again, that you do not price yourself out of the market, because it's going to be really, depending on your seniority, if you're getting the 26.5 hours or if you're getting 7.5, you want to make sure that you keep your weekly certification so that you can get some kind of state benefit. And you might have to get creative down in places like Florida where the weekly benefit amount is only $275.
And we could also, that could be a flight attendant, because right now, if you take a VLOA, you're also not being contested, the unemployment's not being contested. So it could even be a VLOA also, I believe.
Yeah, that's
Oh, no,
correct
this one is an EVLOA, right?
for October and November, but we don't know if that's going to be going forward, the process.
Right, how many VLOAs will be offered, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, the next question is a flight attendant on a VIAP based in LaGuardia. And the question is, hello, I have been on a VLOA for 6 months and took the VIAP effective October 1st. Can you tell me if I am still eligible for unemployment? And if so, for how long?
Okay, so to answer that question, ultimately, whenever there's a question of, am I eligible for unemployment? We offer some guidance, but ultimately that is going to be the state that makes that determination. And we have even seen within the state, it can go 2 people, same situation, different answer. And at that point, we step in to help maintain consistency with how the state's looking at something. What we have seen people do in this situation is, because you have already established a claim previously with your leave, even though you are transitioning to a different status in the eyes of American, the state still sees you as unemployed because you are. So at that point, you would go ahead and keep raising your hand as long as you're meeting the certification eligibility requirements, like being able and available and certifying. So you would just keep maintaining that claim. Now, once that claim, the 26 weeks, has exhausted, because you've been on the leave for a while, right? And now you're going into the VIAP. So you're probably getting into your 26 weeks. So then once that's been exhausted, then the 13-week from the CARES Act will kick in. There will be a new review of your eligibility at that time. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not really sure how New York works because we haven't seen it come up yet. But they may end up querying American, what is your status? And then at that point, the VIAP may come into it. American will provide them with the required information of that status. Just because you have taken a VIAP does not necessarily preclude you from unemployment. There have been a lot of allowances that are in place due to the virus that has totally decimated our economy and our airline at this point. So there have been quite a few allowances that do allow for VIAP separations and covered under unemployment. If you have any issues with this whatsoever at any point, please email us. As David had said earlier, Julie, I believe Josh showed it to you, unemployment@apfa.org. And as soon as we get that, we will help you navigate these crazy waters that we're in.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Okay, the next question is from another flight attendant who has taken the VIAP based in New York. And the question is, can the 12-month VIAP people claim unemployment insurance, and how are the 38 hours reported? The only question asked are, did you work? Did you make more than $504? And were you paid vacation pay or holiday pay? Nothing was asked about severance pay. David, you want to take that?
Sure, Julie. So as Kelly said, 12-month VIAP people in New York, you do have the ability to file for unemployment. It's up to the state to determine your eligibility, if you earned enough to qualify, and if you have the other administrative criteria. The second part of the question was, how are the 38 hours reported? And I'm not sure if you're actually on the initial filing or if you're doing your weekly certification. Sounds like you're doing your weekly certification with, did you make more than $504? And there should be a place on either initial filing where you're able to disclose that severance pay, and if it's not during the biweekly certification process, you want to make sure that you reach out to the state and let them know that there's been a change, if you have a current claim, that there's been a change to your claim status while you're receiving current benefits, because you definitely don't want to withhold anything from the state. But it's just, I don't want you to mess up on your weekly or biweekly certification and disclose something that could stall your claim or trigger any type of fact finding.
Okay, great. Thank you, David. It looks like we have another VIAP, and I think you kind of covered this, both of you, but we'll answer it again since it's another question that came in. How is the 38 hours reported in a weekly claim?
I'm gonna add on to that because it's something we haven't said, but we need to. American, on the back end process, how that is reported to the state. It is reported as earnings and it is reported to the state on a quarterly basis. So New York, when they pull that quarterly report, they will see those 3 quarters paid at the 38 hours each quarter as earnings. So you, that's how they're gonna see it. Now, I am a New York filer myself, and this is a struggle. The struggle is so real in New York on this, because as David said, the way that the weekly certification process is, have you worked any days? We've not worked any days. Have you earned more than 504? Depending on your pay scale, yes or no. Never before did we ever see an employer pay someone not to come to work. And that is something that we've seen with this pandemic, and it is not set up for an unemployment system because we've never seen that, and the unemployment system has never seen an employer pay someone not to come to work. So as far as a definite answer, you know, we don't know. I know for myself how I file. I don't step on property, so no, I haven't worked any days, and no, I don't make over 504. I wish we could give you better guidance on that. We can't get a straight answer from the state either, because this whole paying someone not to come to work is foreign for them, and they don't know how to address it. So not a great answer, but I want you to know what the state sees from the employer, American, so you know what they're seeing, so that way you can have the most informative opportunities to make the best decision with that.
Okay, not always easy to answer.
It's a hard one.
But that's okay. Okay, well, you brought up a good question though, and we might as well talk about it, because I know for the most part, I'm sure most that are calling in understand this, but I know you don't live in New York, but that's where you're based, so that's where you're filing, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about if you've been based in a couple of different bases over the last year?
Yes, yeah, let's do that. I love this topic. So I'm a commuter and I'm a bit of a base hopper. So when you initially file your claim for unemployment, they do pretty much about an 18-month look back. So for me, I was based in Miami, I was based in New York, and I was based in Chicago. So when I took the leave, I'm like, where will I be claiming from these 3 states? Well, I go and look and see, well, what state pays the best? So by Florida. And so then I ended up filing in New York. So if you have had an opportunity to be in different bases in the past 18 months, the last 5 quarters, those are your options. That is where the bases or the states that you can file in. And how that works is American pays payroll tax for your earnings. And part of that payroll tax is being paid into the unemployment insurance fund for the state in which you are garnering those earnings. So wherever you've been in that time, I would suggest go to our website. It has there the max earnings that you can get for your weekly benefit amount for each state. And do what's good for you. Pick a state that's going to pay you the best that you can get of the options that you have.
Kelly, also, I know, so it doesn't matter where you were based last, right? If you've hopped around bases like you have. But also I noticed that some of the states, not a lot, most are about 26 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there were a couple that were 20 weeks. So not only look at the earnings, but also the length of time, right, that you would be able to get them.
Well, and it was interesting with the CARES Act, one of the provisions it provided is it would allow the states to do 39 weeks.
Up to 39 weeks.
Up to 39 weeks of unemployment. However, it was an additional 13 up to 39. So if you were like, let's say Florida, which is what, 12 weeks, David? 12 weeks, they could get 13 additional weeks under the CARES Act, which would bring them to 25. and that was their ceiling. So yeah, definitely look at max weeks, max pay. If you're furloughed, look at how are they gonna look at severance pay, how they're gonna look at that vacation cash out pay. And you're just gonna have to kind of run the numbers and see for the long run, which one is gonna best position you financially going into this. And if you have any questions on that and how to walk through that specific to your situation, David and I are both here to help you with that.
Great, thank you. Okay, the next question is from a furloughed flight attendant based in New York. And the question is, since May 10th, I am waiting for a weekly benefit rate corrected by New York State Labor Department, even though all the paperwork was provided to consider alternate porter within 10 days applying for unemployment insurance in May. On August 2nd, I got an email from the Labor Department which stated that my benefit rate is being recalculated. Nothing has been done as of yet. No one answers the phone at unemployment insurance, and all emails and tweets are ignored. David, Kelly, can you help us out with that?
Yes,
Sorry.
I can. Okay, that was my life there for a while. As I mentioned earlier, New York, bless them, they are just so underwater. I had a similar issue, and I was being paid on the lower rate, which sounds like you were or are, and how to get that fixed. If you could please email us all of your information, give us your claimant ID number, any documents that you've received from the state. David and I meet twice a week with the company to address these issues, both individual issues, systemic issues, looking forward, looking back issues. I'll be honest with you, on mine, it took me 4 months for them to go back and correct it. I did get the back pay for it, but it was 4 months. Could have used that money now. I'd like to pay for gas, but let us work on that for you, because it is virtually impossible to get anybody through New York. As you stated, they don't answer the phones, and using the online email service provision that they have, not really sure where that goes, but not to anybody who answers anything. So let David and I pick that up and take it to the company. They've actually been really good about getting legislative affairs involved if we have to try to turn these claims to get the money that you're entitled to.
And Kelly, can I ask you a question? This is David. I think New York is one of the only states that has a request for reconsideration for certain types of things like this, right? It has
Yes.
a certain form that you can find on the website, is that correct?
It is. There is a request for reconsideration. You see that a lot with the combined wage claims. If there's earnings that are missing, she's doing an alternate base period. Do you remember how that works on New York? I don't.
No, I don't. We can get back to her.
Yeah. Oh, looks like we got your email address, so we're probably going to be stalking you through email shortly.
Some states it's automatic, but some
Yeah.
states you have to actually do something. So.
Yeah.
Well, why we're talking about that, because I know you two have done so much work in helping our flight attendants with issues that they've had with unemployment and getting them paid. Can you guys just talk about some of those cases a little bit and give us a little bit of an idea of, kind of what's happened in the last 6 months and really, because we know you've gotten 1.8 million back for flight attendants so far. So if you don't mind, I know that wasn't a question, but I want them to know kind of that process that you guys go through in order to help them get paid.
Well, I think step one is, I think Kelly and I have really told all of our claimants this, is to make sure you're applying in the right state. And when you do receive that initial monetary determination, if you've been based in 3 different places, that all of those wages are on that monetary determination. And sometimes it takes, and I don't know the states, but sometimes they'll send you an initial monetary determination just for that state while they're reaching out to the other state to grab the wages. So, and if you don't agree with it, there's appeal rights attached to that. And you want to make sure that you pay attention to the time frame on there, because if you exhaust that, it's pretty much you're agreeing to what the state said are your wages. And if that's not correct, what Kelly and I do is work with Human Resources, and they contact payroll and they try to push your wages to the state to correct the claim, at least on the initial filing. to make sure that's correct and kind of go from there, what else we do.
And some of the other some of the other issues that we deal with, you know, if you're drawing a pension, if you opted into one of the VOP programs, we help the states make the correct determination not to measure your pension against your unemployment, stalled claims, identity pieces. You will see that in New York if you do not have a state ID. That is something that you are to provide on the initial claim. And if you do not have a state ID, you do not provide that, well, you could go into a stalled claim place and not know why. We found that that is an identity piece. And then we can get American to work with the state to go ahead and say, yes, this person's totally legit and you need to pay him money. We do a lot with stalled claims, and we do a lot with the states process your initial claim incorrectly. They will do it as a PUA claim, which was part of the CARES Act. And that was setting up a program in each state that people who could never be eligible for unemployment could file for unemployment. That's not us. So, and with that comes different ceilings and floors of your weekly benefit amount. So we get those claims flipped, get more money for our flight attendants that way.
Yep, I remember at the very beginning,
Yeah.
the company was basically saying some of the flight attendants had quit when they had not
Oh,
quit.
yes, yes.
And so I remember you got a lot of those flight attendants corrected, thank goodness. So
Yeah, because American is using a third-party provider to deal with the state unemployment offices. And with that third-party provider, there have been some incorrect status updates that have, kind of like what you had said, the reported as quit, on a personal leave. What was the funny one we had? I just walked off.
Walked off the job.
Yeah, walked off the job. Not funny, but we have really kind of sick sense of humor at this point. But getting those things flipped so that way the claims are actually processed correctly.
well, and I happened to notice as I was going through the information on the website, you have one area there that basically helps the flight attendant know exactly how to answer the questions. Because sometimes the
Yes.
questions aren't that easy to answer, and you really make that easy for them on the website. So I think that's really helpful, and probably if we would have had that at the start, back when we were having those issues, that also could have helped us. So anyhow, let's get on. We've got a few more questions here. We want to make sure we get through all of these today. The next question is from a flight attendant who is out on an EVLOA, and she's based in Miami. And she's asking what the max pay is for her to get, if she, be able to still file for unemployment.
Hi, Julie. So I think what she's asking is, again, this will be during the weekly certification. What is the most that you can make per week? There is not we get this question every day. You know, how do I claim these hours? How do I claim these hours? We cannot advise you how to claim those hours, you know, it is totally up to the individual claimant, how he or she chooses to certify for those hours. But in Florida, again, you have to get somewhat creative because of the weekly benefit amount being only $275. There's nothing precluding you from claiming 0 hours in the first, second, and third week, and then in the fourth week claiming all of the hours, so that at least you get state benefits for the first 3 weeks and any supplemental payments if applicable.
Oh, that's cool. I never thought about doing it like that. Good idea.
Not advocating for that, but I'm just saying, that's just some things that we hear from our claimants.
All right, good information to have. Okay, David, it looks like you're gonna help us with this next one. This is a flight attendant who is furloughed. And the question is, should we wait until furlough pay is exhausted before we file unemployment? Or should we go ahead and file for it now?
That's a great question, and we get that a lot. So Kelly and I have always said to please file your claim as soon as possible. We are seeing some of these stalled claims. I mean, you may run into an issue with your claim filing where it takes 2 months before you receive your first benefit payment. And if you're furloughed, you may exhaust your severance pay before you get your first unemployment payment. So to prevent a lapse in any pay so that you have a continuous pay period, we suggest that you file as soon as possible. And even if you are receiving severance pay and you're in a state where it impacts the weekly benefit amount, if you receive $0 in unemployment insurance benefits, those weeks do not count towards the maximum annual benefit weeks. So please apply as soon as possible and please certify.
I was just gonna say, certify, 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 right? I think that's what we all learned from the video, for sure. So don't forget to certify. Okay, the next question is from a furloughed flight attendant based in Miami. And it says, I received 3 months of furlough pay from American. Should I begin the Florida unemployment process now, even though I can't receive benefits? Or, okay, this is pretty much the same as the last question. So I think this one's already been answered, and David answered that quite well. So let's move on to the next one, make sure we get through all these. I'll keep reading. Okay. And I don't know if this is a furloughed flight attendant or where they're based, but it says, what do you mean by keep raising your hand? Kelly, you gonna help us out with that?
I am certified. So, what I mean when I say when you raise your hand, is you're raising your hand that week to certify, to tell the state, I need either my full, I need my full week, or if I'm putting in some other type of income, I need my partial benefit, but you're raising your hand and go, I need you to pay me. So certify, certify, certify. Also, as David had mentioned, sometimes the lengthy process times can be anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks until you get your first check. Keep certifying during that time period. If you end up getting a communication from the state that says you're not eligible for unemployment, or you didn't make enough money, or if they're telling you you're only gonna get $100 a week and you think it should be more, keep certifying throughout every single process, every single week, because we can help walk you through how to resolve those issues. But if you did not certify and you go into a restitution through back pay, you will not get it because you did not certify. So if there's one thing that you can take away from today, please certify on your weekly or every other week process, dependent upon your state.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Okay, next question is a LaGuardia-based flight attendant who is furloughed. And the question is, if after my 3-month furlough pay period ends, I decide to get a part-time job, if I already applied for the unemployment benefits, do I just stop certifying when I start a part-time job? Kelly, you want to help us out with that one?
Oh, yes. Okay, if you've already applied for benefits and you're getting benefits, and now you have a part-time job, depending on what that part-time job pays, depends on how it's going to impact your benefit. I would go, just me, I don't know what your part-time job is paying you, but you're receiving unemployment on a full-time job. So it may be in your best interest to go ahead and certify. And then in New York, it's going to ask you how many days did you work and did you make over 504. So if you ended up working over 4 days, you will not get any of that money anyway. If it was less than 4 days, they will modify your weekly benefit amount. And again, as we had said earlier, if you're receiving 0 because of income that you're reporting or work that you are reporting, it will not come off of your weeks. And it's best to go ahead and just keep that claim active. It's good for 52 weeks.
Okay, great. Good to know. So if I work 3 days and I make $200, right, then I could still put in for it. Right?
Yes, yeah. And New York is a little odd in that they tie your weekly benefit amount to days worked. So 4 days of work equals 504 to them. So if you take 4 divided into 504 and you work 3 days, you would just take that off of the 504.
Okay, great. Okay, next question is another furloughed flight attendant based in New York. How do we know we're receiving the proper amount? And should we just assume that we get the max for our state? And David, I think you're going to help us out with that one.
I am. So you absolutely should not assume that you're going to receive the max for your state, because it is going to be based on your base period wages. And again, this is why we have made it very important that if you have been based in any other state during the base period, that you ensure those wages are correct. But if you've been in that one base, and say you're in LaGuardia, you haven't been anywhere, and you receive your monetary determination and it does not, you are not receiving the maximum state benefit, you can look in the New York Unemployment Resources handbook, and you can see how they calculated your weekly benefit amount. And if you don't agree, by all means, please email that to us. Let us review it. I mean, we can't see your wages, but we can verify with Human Resources and payroll what wages were actually reported to the state. And this could be especially true if maybe you've been out, for any length of time where maybe you need an alternate base period, or if you've been out on an IOD, or if you've been out on medical leave, some type of leave where your wages have been reduced and you think they should be more. We need to know this if you're not going to receive the maximum state benefit.
Okay, great, thanks, David.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. All right. Let's see, it looks like our next question is a flight attendant who is on a leave of absence based in Miami. And she says, I'm based in Florida and on the 26.5-hour EVLOA. I don't want to make a mistake on my initial certification. What did you mean by get creative? We talked about that a little bit more, but maybe let's talk about it again, about what some other flight attendants have done. And she says, can I contact you separately if I have a question about the initial certification? And Kelly, I believe you're going to help with that one.
I'm going to try to brave that one. So yes, you can always contact us separately. Anybody can on this. As far as what does creatively mean, we had mentioned earlier that the reporting requirements from earnings from American, how that gets to the state is on a quarterly basis. And unemployment was never written for people to get paid not to come to work. So it's really, we're just in this really weird upside down world right now. So what we have seen flight attendants do in the various states where they are claiming that these are where these earnings are coming from without having any day's work to garner them. Depending on your pay scale, some flight attendants will take whatever they're getting from American on a monthly basis. They will divide it up over the 4 weeks that are in that month. Some of them will just claim it in 1 week for that month. Some flight attendants, we've seen them claim it every other week in that month. Ultimately, the state doesn't care. All they care is the numbers American that are reporting to us, do they match up with what the claimant is reporting to us? So however you have to put those shells on the board to not be fraudulent and not reporting something that you have a requirement to report, as long as the data gets there, the state's happy, American doesn't care, and you're in a position where you're not exposing yourself to either intentional or unintentional fraud. You're reporting the wages as you were required to. So hopefully that explains what creative is. And just to follow up, if you have any more specific questions on that, or anyone else does on this call, that may have spurred a lot more questions, feel free to reach out to us and we can go in a little bit more depth with your specific situation and pay rate.
Perfect.
And Kelly, that email is unemployment@apfa.org.
It
right?
is.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, next question. This is a flight attendant who's furloughed, based in New York. And as a furloughed flight attendant based in New York, I filed October 1st. Am I able to collect my severance pay while collecting unemployment? And if we are not able to collect both at the same time, am I exhausting my 26 weeks of unemployment since my furlough pay period has not ended? We kind of touched on this a few times, but we might as well answer it again.
Yeah, so in New York, severance pay may reduce your weekly benefit amount. And we have said that if you collect your severance pay and you're reporting it, And if your unemployment weekly benefit amount is 0, then those weeks are not going to count towards your maximum weeks of 26. And as Kelly has said, New York is amazing in that they have gone above and beyond, and you can get unemployment up to 59 weeks right now. Am I correct?
You are.
So, please, it's very important, get your applications in. Don't sit out here not getting paid because you waited to your severance pay to end and say nobody told me, because, you could run into any type of snags during this process, identity or stalls or anything that you are not prepared for, and we don't want you to go without benefits payments.
Perfect. Thanks, David. Okay, next question is from a furloughed flight attendant. When we certify our weekly unemployment benefit, there is a question that asks if we are still employed with the company. Should we answer no, and is that correct?
Okay, so I'm gonna grab that one if you don't mind.
Sure.
If you are a furloughed flight attendant, you are still on paper an employee of an American. However, you are no longer attached to payroll. So ultimately what the state is querying about when they ask you this question is, are you still attached to payroll? So you are not. You are in a furloughed, laid off position. So at that point, you would just answer no, that you are not currently still employed with America. But please know, just from our end process of it, you're still on the seniority list. You are still have your recall rights. You will be coming back to American sooner rather than later. And so just by you answering that question does not change that other part. It's just, that's just a state reporting thing. So no, you're not attached to payroll. You're no longer an employee.
So the answer is
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next question. This flight attendant is on leave of absence, getting paid the $26.15, and wants to know if they have to look for work. And another question is did you work or earn any money, and how do I answer?
That's a great question. So currently, right now in the state of Florida, the governor has waived the job search requirement looking for work. So, and actually in the Florida DEO packet that's online, they actually tell you when you're doing your weekly certification how to navigate around that, because it's going to ask you to enter 5 different employers that you've done for the week, and it's a asterisk, so it's a must report. But they actually tell you how to get around that, since the governor has that currently waived. For did you work or earn any money? Did you work? Well, sometimes when you answer no in certain states, in Florida, they have to look through their handbook, but did you work? No, it won't allow you to enter any wages. So you're going to have to look for a place to enter other wages. And if you want to give us a call, I can walk you through that, because we actually have the packet with the screenshots of their claimant certification questions.
Can I add to that, David?
Please.
That claimant handbook, it's also on the Florida website, as well as we have it on the APFA under the unemployment resources. But I'm going to build off what you said on the waiving of the work search. They also, Florida has a work registration requirement as well. So that is a 2-part requirement. Both of those are waived until or through December 5th. So depending on where we're going in this world, keep an eye on that. That may get extended past December 5th, but currently you're good until then.
Okay. All right, and this looks like it's our last question for today. Let's see here. That is for this town hall. I know we have another one a little bit later. But this is a furloughed flight attendant who is based in Miami. And when applying in Florida, we don't have an option to mark furlough. Should I answer laid off?
Yes. In the state's mind, they see those as being the same. So answering laid off is the same as furlough. So definitely go forth with that answer.
Okay, well, it looks like we got through all of the questions that were asked today. If you have more questions after this, and let's say you have any other issues, I believe you now have the email address that you can email Kelly and David at unemployment@apfa.org. as well as make sure to go back and look over the website, especially to the state-specific information. There's a lot of information there that may help you with some other questions that may come up for you. And more importantly than anything, please know that we are here to help you. David and Kelly especially have been helping so many flight attendants with their issues with unemployment. And during this time frame, we want to make sure that you understand that we are always here for you and we'll do anything we can to help you with this process. So thank you very much for joining us today. From all of us here, be well and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.